Gather round, dads, it's time for a tale. Hand me a book and a warm pint of ale. Let's discuss writing and the literary gods with Dan Roberts on the Dadlit Pod.
Welcome to the Dadlit Pod, the literary podcast for people who have just not been the same since Tom Clancy died. Tonight, I'm joined by Alexander Marriott, Dr. Alexander Marriott, author of The School of Homer and Murder with a Glass of Malvasia, the Virgil Colvin detective series set in the Greek Isles, with plenty of death and action and a lot of food. I'm going to be honest. You put a lot of food and food tasting into the book.
Yeah, and what's your problem?
Just saying, just saying. Friend of Jeff Siger as well, Dr. Alexander Marriott.
I'd like to think that he and I are friends.
Yes.
Even though we've only met once and we exchange most of our conversations through email. But still, we did share a dais at
Yes.
Murder by the Book, Houston's premier mystery and thriller and sometimes horror themed bookstore.
That's true. This is your second. You've appeared at Murder by the Book twice.
Yes, the second time I went solo and
Yes.
sold a bunch of books for the Murder with a Glass of Malvasia debut.
Yes, but I mean, in all fairness, CJ Box goes twice a week there to sell his books, according to you. So if you ever wanted to meet,
He's there at least twice a year because he has a couple of different series and he's able to crank them out now with kind of machine-like regularity.
yes, and
He's very
apparently,
popular. He fills up the space.
yeah,
But
what?
he doesn't. I mean, Murder by the Book has a couple of different tiers of author. I am obviously at the bottom rung of the
Yeah,
system, where there's not a expectation that I'm going to really bring a lot of people or move a lot of product.
yeah,
Even with that expectation, they're very generous and lovely with me and willing to let me give it a shot. Then there's CJ Box, who the expectation is he will fill up the store and sell a lot of books.
yeah. CJ
Well, as I
Box.
say, so
CJ
CJ
Box
Box,
is in the upper echelon.
well, so he's at the upper echelon of that tier of writer who will come in and fill up the Murder by the Bookstore and sell a bunch of product. Then there is the elite, the Richard Osmans of the world, who when they
Yeah,
come in, they can't even do the event at Murder by the Book because the expected audience is so vast that they have to rent out a big space, like a whole giant church or something,
yeah.
to fill up the hordes of readers who will show up with the entire Thursday Murder Club series and demand, even though they're not allowed to, that Richard Osman sign all of them.
I remember when Ian Toll showed up at the Navy Museum when I was working with that particular branch of the executive, and he had all of the naval historians were there, obviously, and it was his second book. I'm not sure. One was Pacific Crucible. I forget what the second one was, and he was very annoyed that I had brought the earlier book for him to sign. I brought the first book, Pacific Crucible, and I bought his second book at the talk. And he was like, "What, you want two books?" And I was at the back of the line. It was quite, I was quite annoyed uh, that Ian Toll did not want to sign
It,
two of my books, both
yeah,
hardcovers, by the way.
Osmond's book event had rules. You
Wow.
had to buy a copy of the most recent book, and you
Yeah.
could buy two. You could buy two to get signed, and you were allowed to bring one other book. Not all of them, just one other
He
Osmond
doesn't have
book that
that
you
many
wanted him to sign.
books. He doesn't have that many
He's
books.
he's got four or five at this point, but yeah, there was a limit. You could only bring one other.
I mean, let's compare that with Jeffrey Siger, Prince Among Men, who not only signed books for you and invited you to be on a panel with him for his attendance at Murder by the Book, also signed all those books for me.
Well, in fairness, he just signed a bunch of those books for the store, and I just bought them from the store.
Oh, oh, oh. You could have lied.
I don't want you to get the wrong idea about Siger. I mean, he's a lovely man and very generous. And if
Yeah,
I'd
but not.
asked him to sign them for you, he would have, but I didn't.
Yes.
So it's actually a story about me.
This is what friendship looks like, folks, after 20 years.
It has been that long. It's
It has
amazing that
been
it's
a
been that
long
long.
time.
And that
Eh,
brings us to our discussion today, because it was
yes.
roughly 20 years ago that I'm pretty sure I tipped you off to Tom Clancy's
I
Rainbow
think it
Six.
was. I think it was probably 20 years ago where you said, you need to sit down and read Rainbow Six. And I had not read any Clancy. I'd seen all the movies, of course. And my favorite is obviously what everyone's favorite is, The Hunt for Red October. Even though
Yeah,
it
Connery.
featured,
It's Connery.
yeah, because Connery, it's got, I mean, Baldwin is the worst person in it.
Yeah,
Everybody
he
else is
is.
awesome. He's got
He
great
is he is
people.
the worst. He is the worst person in it. You
He's the
got James
worst
Earl
person in it.
Jones, right? You got Sam Neill.
Yes. Also, what did Baldwin do to screw up that cherry gig that Harrison Ford immediately takes it over? And I think gets two movies out of it.
He did. He did get
Yes.
two. I think he got two or three. I can't remember. I've only seen one of
Uh,
them.
a Clear Present Danger and what's the other one? The
Patriot
Patriot
Games.
Games. Patriot Games, where he goes up against Sean Bean. Uh,
Hmm.
a reflection of Clancy's continuing dislike of the IRA.
Oh yeah, Clancy makes that very obvious in a number of books, which makes sense. He's writing in the end of the Cold War and into the '90s when the Irish troubles and problems are still being hammered out,
Yes.
and
Only now
obviously,
without the monetary support of the Soviet Union.
of course,
Yeah.
of course. Uh, so yeah, I don't remember the context all those years ago in which it even came up that I was recommending this book to you.
I think you were talking about the video game and how great the video game was. And
You can tell this is our pre-dad era
yeah, this is a
that you and I are
pre-dad era where we
playing
were
lots
playing
of video
video
games
games.
and
Yes.
talking about it with each other. Now, when you
Yeah,
do that, it's a prelude to some sort of horrible criminal act.
yes. I was gonna say you and I used to play Call of Duty all the time,
Hmm.
which is not a Tom Clancy series. And but I have played other Tom Clancy series video games like Splinter Cell and those kind. But Rainbow Six, you and I could not figure out why they had not made a movie out of Rainbow Six. It's to my mind one of the
Well, I
most
know why. That's not actually that much of a
yeah,
mystery.
well, you have a theory as to why
Oh.
it hasn't been made. And what's your theory?
Well, one of the fun things about Rainbow Six, from my perspective, for a whole host of reasons, is that the ultimate, and obviously there's going to be lots of plot spoilers. So anyone who's not
Yeah.
read Rainbow Six and wants to read it before they listen to this podcast, I'd recommend that you stop now.
Yes.
But one of the things that, from my vantage point, was very original about it is that the bad guys in Rainbow Six, the ultimate bad guys, there's lots of secondary and tertiary bad guys, but the
Yeah.
primary bad guys are all of these extremely radical, committed environmentalists,
Yes.
and who have taken all of the implications of their various ideas and follow them to their logical endpoints, and they are committed to what can only be described as the most evil overarching plot that no James Bond villain could ever have matched,
No, no.
which is to wipe out essentially the entire global population of humans,
Yes.
to leave the world a paradise, an Eden, with
Yes.
only the select few left to not even rebuild. The goal is not to rebuild; it's just to
Yes.
essentially treat nature like Margaret Mead treated islanders in the Pacific,
Yes.
as just subjects to observe.
Yes. And to sort
So,
of relish in it. There's actually a
oh
character
yeah,
who is the most evil character in the book, I think, who sort of is just a very wealthy guy who dreams of being able to fly over the plains of Africa and shoot any animal he sees as if he was some sort of grand Hemingway style hunter. And he's a complete psychopath. And
no,
he's possibly
they're all psychopaths.
they're all complete murderous psychopaths.
Now, so it's original in the sense that environmentalists, who usually are played off. I mean, at the same time, this book came out in 1998. I think The Lost World came out in 1998 as well.
Yes.
A Michael
Yes.
Crichton novel, which is interesting because Michael Crichton would later write a novel where environmentalists are again the bad guys. And that, as far as
Yes.
I know, those two books are the only major contemporary novels in which environmentalists play the villain. Um, and by the way, this is to give you a sense
Well,
of how much
yes.
this plays in my own mind. This was part of the overarching thought behind the plot for my second Colvin novel.
Yes.
I won't say anything more about that, but if anyone has read the second Colvin book, then you understand that environmentalism plays a role in potentially that murder.
Yes.
Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. You have to read. I'm not going to say anything more, and neither will Dan. But
Yeah.
part of my thinking there was that those two books do this in such a different kind of way. I wanted to sort of channel that into the
Yeah.
second Colvin book in a very deliberate way. And of course, Dan and I's graduate program offered up a hilarious way to do this.
In the
And
form of a
so
very
took
weird.
yes, so I took advantage of that anyway. Um,
Well,
so so
it goes beyond environmentalism, right? It is environmentalism, but the people, the villains in those books are not just environmentalists. They're this sort of horrible, malignant, narcissistic force, which says that they should exist juxtaposed against the environment, but everybody else shouldn't.
right,
That's their that they should sort of exist to flaunt and enjoy the wonders of nature and existence, but the rest of humanity needed to die.
yeah. Well, they're a parasite upon the earth. So
Yes.
the so so that was always interesting to me. And again, just to wrap up my attempted comparison from 1998, in the Lost World, there's a radical environmentalist character played by Vince Vaughn, and the movie version, I should
Yeah,
say.
the
I don't
movie
think in the book
version.
it plays out this way, but the
Yeah.
in the movie version, he is of course one of the heroes, or at least
Yes.
in his own very generous portrayal, and you're supposed to come away thinking, oh, this is one of the good guys.
Yeah.
So I thought that was super interesting. And of course, I've just reread this book in anticipation of chatting with you about it. which is fun because it's a 900-page Tom Clancy,
Oh, it's
assassin's tool. You could throw it at someone and really damage them.
I
Um,
can't imagine trying to read it in hardcover, how heavy it would be.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I
Like a
think it's like 100.
Gutenberg.
It's like 150,000 words or something like that. It's a long,
Yes.
thing. It reads very quick. It's Clancy. It's pure Clancy fantasy. There's lots of, and as I'm rereading it from '98, you get all of this stuff that in the '90s people are taking for granted. But there were some interesting things that I thought, 27 years on from the publication, that Clancy kind of has very interesting ideas on. For instance, the whole scheme of this SIVA virus that is basically Ebola that has been gene modified with cancer genes
Yeah.
to make it nastier,
Mm.
and kind of engineering this in a lab to then deploy at the Sydney Olympics in the year 2000, obviously, through like a misting spray
Yeah.
to kick off like a global pandemic that will then be will cause just irrational panic all over the
Mm.
world. And then the main villain, who Dan I think was talking about earlier, John Brightly, he had a company, a bioengineering company that did lots of medical research, would then step forward by sort of say, "Hey, we have this experimental Ebola vaccine we've been working on. Everyone's in a panic. We don't really have a lot to sort of use here in this moment. Why don't we just use this?" And of course, the second part of the plan is that this experimental vaccine will actually contain, because it's a live virus vaccine, will actually contain the virus itself and
Yes.
infect everyone else who didn't get infected in the first wave. And
Yeah.
of
So
course, they also have an
basically,
alternative vaccine. So for me, reading it, it just made me think of, wow, I wonder what Clancy would think if he had actually made it to COVID. Um,
the
you know,
plandemic, as it were.
mm, yeah. Um, but of course, he doesn't. So we don't know
Yes.
how he would have thought, or how he would have tried to pursue getting this movie made. But yeah, my fundamental theory about why this is not a movie is the environmentalists.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone in that town wants to make a film where the environmentalists are plotting to kill everybody,
Yeah. Well,
despite all the cool stuff that happens in the book.
this is I think one of the great action books. If there's a reason why it never got made, I think it probably was the fact that by 98 the Good Friday Accords had taken place. The IRA was on the
Very,
outs.
very easy to have just changed the terrorists in that scene.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so we're talking dad lit, right? So what makes this
Yeah.
dad lit is not that the environmentalists are the bad guys, although I find that interesting
Yeah.
and fun, but that the book is essentially centered around the creation of this international team,
Yeah.
Rainbow, which is going to be dark, totally secret, and its job will be to respond to these international terrorism incidents that the locals can't deal with or don't want to deal with.
Yeah. Well, basically, in recognition of the fact of how lousy Europeans had been up to that point in responding to terrorism, with
Right.
incidents like Munich and Carlos the Jackal and the Red Army faction, where effectively the Europeans started just paying off
Or,
terrorists to
or the
leave them
Libyans,
alone.
or the Libyans,
Yeah, or the
blowing
Libyans.
up
Yes.
the West German nightclubs. So anyway, there's lots of stuff floating
Yeah.
around here. And of course, it's all set in a post Cold War world where all these terrorists are basically unemployed and don't have any backing for what they used to do all the time because the Soviet Union has stopped.
Well, not to mention they also lost.
Yeah, they lost.
They're
Stop
losers.
giving them jobs. But of course, there is a terrorism threat. So this in the late '90s, Clancy doesn't get into it very much, which again is kind of an interesting pre 9/11 world to live in, where Clancy is
Yes.
more focused on Carlos the Jackal and all these leftist terrorist groups that no one really cares about that much anymore because fundamentalist Islamic terrorism became such the focus of the next 2 decades.
Yeah, due to the
Um,
embassy bombings primarily.
well, or 9/11.
Or not. Well, yes. Yeah, but at the time that this book was coming out, it was the embassy bombings
But as you and
and
I
the World
know,
Trade.
that means the book had been written after the World Trade Center, but well
Yes.
before the embassy bombings. It came out in
Yes.
'98, and those embassy bombings happened. So there's no way Clancy had any knowledge of those bombings when he
Yes.
wrote this.
Yes.
But anyway, so and of course this is all set in the Jack Ryan universe, where Ryan is president, and John Clark
Mm,
is one of his buddies from the CIA that he's allowed to set this Rainbow unit up. And of
yes.
course, John Clark is the titular character. Rainbow Six is a reference to his code. His code name is the commander of this group. So, so we have that as our sort of main, reason for being in the book, and then of course the overarching, villain decides, in order to get a contract for the Sydney Olympics, we have to have a global conversation about terror and the prevalence of terror events and have the Sydney Olympics people kind of freaked out about terrorism so that my buddy who's part of this plot can get a security contract down there that will allow us to plant this bioweapon in the fogging system at the Olympic Games. So therein lays all the action, right? Because now he's going to sort of surreptitiously meet this old Soviet handler who he's then going to pay very generously to sort of talk to his old buddies and put them up to stuff, which of course sets up all of these things that people who play the video game Rainbow Six will sort of know because they became the thing that most people who ever heard of Rainbow Six ever interacted with, right? All of these different terror scenarios. One's at a bank, one's at like a chateau, one is at
Yeah.
a big Disneyland style European theme park. Another will be at a hospital near the military base where Rainbow is headquartered. Right, these will be the settings for some of these big set piece action sequences where the terrorists take over, uh, you know, try to achieve their agenda, and then of course Rainbow, in a variety of ways, will come down on them like a ton of bricks. And of course, all of that will culminate in the event. Once the good guys figure out that there's actually something that ties all of this together, and
Alex has now gone dark. We can't hear him.
some more malevolent plot in the back of this, which is kind of fun. No, you can't hear me?
Yeah, you cut out for
No,
a
that's not
second.
my fault. That's Roberts' fault.
No, it's
Oh,
definitely
okay.
your fault.
Well, what was I saying when I cut out?
It all caught up.
Oh, okay. So
Yes.
so yeah, you have all of these great action sequences, over the course of 900 pages, that kind of bring the plot to its eventual culmination in the middle of the Brazilian rainforest,
Yes.
where Rainbow has to dispatch the environmentalist bad guys in a kind of, I think, a really awesome conclusion.
Yes.
Not that it's all that dramatic or tense, because as we find out, the environmentalist bad guys don't really have any experience in tactical fighting with anybody.
Zero, which is
So,
funny.
and for again people who play the video games, we then get our kind of a cool tech fantasy at the end, where Clancy plays with this idea that some company has developed basically a heart monitor identification system, because the heart gives off its own electromagnetic field that can be picked up by this device. So Clark at the end can kind of maneuver his men in behind guys looking for them in the jungle and easily kill them. Which again, if you play the video game, is a kind of a central feature of playing that game, is being able to kind of pinpoint where exactly the bad guys are. it's a great book. I think for dad litters out there,
Oh yeah,
it's
it's the
got
ultimate. I think it's the ultimate. It's other than Old Yeller. I've come to the conclusion that Old Yeller is the seminal work of dad lit ever written. But I think Rainbow Six is definitely number two. It's effectively about um the thoughtful and righteous direction of male violence.
Yeah, yeah, it is actually. It's interesting because a lot of the post on all of these action sequences, of course, includes lots of sort of debriefing and trying to figure out what happened and dealing
Yes.
with the aftermath of taking life while at the same time creating life.
Yes.
We talk about Dadlit. Of course, when I read this, I was a very much younger single person who had no children. But as I reread it, I sort of was um, remembered that the main characters are sort of in the throes of life transition. That John Clark has sort of become an administrator, right? He's not going to be on the ground doing the wet
Yeah.
work and the leading from the front anymore. He's going to be in the office working on budgets and preparing to be a grandfather and kind of confronting that stage of life and not liking it
Yeah.
and being uncomfortable with it, even though he created the job for himself. So he's his own worst enemy in that regard. Um, and of course, his son-in-law is on the team, and he's one of the team leaders,
Yeah.
Domingo Chavez, or Ding, as he will be referred to throughout the book.
Who I think
Is
first arises in Clear and Present Danger.
probably there's lots of
Yeah.
references. It's funny because you mentioned all that the book fits into this sequential reading one's supposed to do if one wants to tie them all together. So there's lots of references to what Ding and John Clark have been up to in other contexts recently. And as I read it, I was sort of thought to myself, well, I can only assume this refers to some other 800 or 900 page book Clancy wrote recently at that moment in 1998. And I'm sure it does
Yeah.
because they're all kind of obliquely referencing President Ryan.
Yeah.
And so anyway, Ding is on the cusp of fatherhood, right? He's
Yes.
about to have his first child with John Clark's daughter. So you've got that kind of life milestone emerging in the midst of what is essentially the meting out of instant justice.
Yes.
Right? You don't call in Rainbow if you want to make an arrest. This is
No. No, you
which, by the
don't.
way, gets commented on hilariously as you go through the book because the body count is kind of getting sky high, and they kind of realize, hey, we probably need to talk to one of these guys to figure out like who's setting them up to do these things. And they're like, yeah, but they're all dead. We keep killing all of them. And it's like, well, it's hard. It's hard to capture a guy when you're busting through a window with a flashbang and he's about to
Yes.
spray a room full of kids with machine gun fire. So
Yes.
you have that aspect of it too, which is really funny. And of course, you get all the aspects of a highly trained tactical, hostage rescue team. Essentially, you got snipers and guys in charge of explosive and guys in charge of trying to get fiber optic cameras set up to get intel on the space. And,
Oh, it's a
uh,
masterpiece. It's a
coming up.
masterpiece of action.
So it's a lot of fun, and yeah, I still think it would be a great movie. I don't see it ever getting made.
No, I don't think it'll ever get made, particularly not at this point. We're so far out from
Yeah,
the
I
sort
think
of
if 9/11 hadn't happened, it could have probably still gotten made, given how successful the video game had been at
yeah,
that point. Um,
yeah.
they probably just would have mangled the overarching plot some way.
I
They
think
would
you
have liked
could.
that. They would have liked that it was a big evil businessman, but they would have liked his overarching agenda, so they would have changed that
Yes.
to like some Duke Nukem Planeteer. Captain Planet type thing.
It's the things that really impress me about it, the way he sets up the SWAT team like attacks are so fantastic and are such they're well crafted small setups which place all the pieces to the point where you know where everything is, but you don't feel like that's what's happening. You feel like you're in the action, and it's not just, oh, well, he needs these perspectives to, show us when it all goes down. And effectively, when it does go down, it goes down over a matter of seconds, right? So you're
Yeah,
setting up uh, with tension for probably 40 pages and then coming in with action for five. And I just think it's still thrilling. It's absolutely thrilling uh, to just kind of watch the pieces move around the board. And not the not the least of which is the fact that all of the characters that he creates are all very singular. They're all different, and you get a feel for all of them, and you really despise some of them. And others you really just love. You just love. And
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I
yes,
think the KGB agent is one of these ambiguous characters who seems like the obvious villain. Is this guy being paid to
yes,
initiate terrorist activities? And yet, by the time you get to him confronting Clark and the rest of the Rainbow team, they basically treat him as a sort of respectable character, right? That he's just,
yes,
this man who's, they all still have this Cold War mentality that he's a spy for the other side, and he's a professional, and
yes,
he realized at the last moment that he was working for insane psychopaths and turned state's evidence, as it were,
yes.
and they kind of let him go,
Yeah.
which is which is
Well,
fascinating.
well, beyond that, he eventually sets up like he sets all these things up. At the same time, he's almost rooting for Rainbow Six by the end. He's
Well,
rooting
yeah, I
against,
mean,
yeah,
he's definitely rooting for them once he realizes they exist because it's
yes,
making him richer.
yes,
He's hilariously fleecing all of these terrorists, thinking he's being very clever by pocketing his employer's largesse behind his back.
yes,
No, he's a good. The Popov, the KGB character, is a great little bit of semi comic relief as you move through it. Because of course he's in the dark. He doesn't know what all this
yeah,
is about. He's just basically saw an opportunity to make a lot of money and talked to all these lunatics he used to work with, and then it kind of macabrely is that a word, macabrely,
yeah.
um, in a macabre way, sort of watching them die and
Which
benefiting
he
from it.
doesn't actually care about either. He doesn't
No, he does. He
care.
doesn't know. He doesn't.
Yeah,
No,
yes,
he thinks they're dopes. That they didn't realize the Cold War ended and they lost.
yes,
Um, and Popov clearly did, and wants to enjoy life. He wants to enjoy
yes.
life. He's looking at all this money that he's potentially making, thinking about how he can enjoy it. So when he finds out that the people he's been working for plan to destroy everything, he's pretty pissed.
He is very upset. He's very frustrated. And by the way, on learning, immediately switches sides.
Yeah, yeah,
Decides that the people he's working for formerly were sort of a bunch of dopes that he could fleece. And then he says, no, these people are psychotic. They all need to die.
yeah. I was just looking at it again. People look at it and say, "Man, 900 pages. I don't have time to slog through it." The first 600 pages read fairly quickly. I mean,
Oh
Clancy's not a
yeah.
tough read in any circumstances, but the last 300 are like lightning.
Oh
And
yeah.
Dan, I mean, the last 300 are basically you get the beginning of the assault on the hospital by the IRA guys, right to the end. Um,
Yes.
and if you don't blow through that in a day and a half, then I would assume you were in a car accident or a family member had died or something, because
Yes.
it's hard to take your foot off the pedal at that point, and you really just want to see what happens next. It's one of these Clancy books. They all kind of do this, but I mean, of all the Clancy books I have read, I should say. This one, especially when you get toward that part of the book, really hops back and forth. He really
Yeah.
changes viewpoint on who he's following around every 5 seconds. It seems like, um,
Yes.
and it's fun. It's fun to sort of see everyone's different point of view and expectation of what's going on. Um, you have plots being foiled, and then the bad guys sort of trying to figure out what happened,
Yeah.
which is pretty funny. Um, and if anyone thinks that it's pure unadulterated success for Rainbow, I will spoil it for you. They do suffer setbacks
Oh
in
yeah.
the book, and almost get their asses blown to hell at one point. So
Yes. There's
not
there's
not
not to mention there's the rather brutal slow death of a quite likable character
Oh yeah, there's the
who
brutal, slow death of many
yes.
not particularly objectionable characters as the main bad guys try to figure out the ins and outs of their device of mass destruction.
Yes. No, I think
Um,
it's
all that, all like I said, all that's really interesting. It's all in the same book, and it's all woven together in a way that especially for anyone who lived past COVID, I think is actually much more terrifyingly real an idea than it would have been in 1998.
oh yeah, almost definitely. I mean, effectively the villain in this is what conspiratorial thinkers believe Bill Gates is.
Yes, yeah, I think John Brightling is definitely what conspiratorial thinkers would read into Bill Gates. The farmland,
Yes.
the medical research,
Yep.
yeah, all of it.
Inoculations.
Yeah,
He is effectively what conspiratorial thinkers literally believe Bill Gates is doing.
yes.
And
I wonder if they've directly drawn on Clancy's John Brightling character, or it's just they just have sui generis come up with it on their own.
I don't know. I've wondered this because, of course, even at the beginning of all this, um, I reflected on Rainbow Six and I was like, wow, when you think about it, with all these, this weird pandemic stuff, this is classic Rainbow Six. The Wuhan Institute of Virology, and all of this sort of chaos. And I was shocked that they weren't talking about Rainbow Six then. And the fact that it is centered around, I think because most of the book talks about these, SWAT team anti-terror hostage rescuers. People forget about the underlying threat within the book, which is the pandemic of
Yeah,
John Brightly. Yeah, yeah,
like I said, which is especially diabolical. It's not just the engineering and release of a superbug, but then creating a secondary mechanism to get a bunch of panicked people to voluntarily kill themselves
yes, and then infect
unknowingly.
other
But
people, and then
yeah,
infect other
yeah, of
people.
course, of course.
Yes,
Um, so yeah, it's yeah, no, you're right. It's weird that it didn't come up, but again, I think that speaks to how people remember the book at this point, which I think is purely in its SWAT team video game form.
Yes.
I don't think anyone has anyone except you and me, and anyone else who's taken the time to read this book. And I've now read it twice. Dan said he wanted to talk about this. I'm like, oh, it's been more than 20 years since I read Rainbow Six.
Yeah.
How much of it do I remember? And the answer to that question, by the way, was a lot. But
Yep.
there were also elements I didn't remember that well, so I'm glad I did reread it, and it was fun. It was a good reread.
Oh,
There
it's
were
it's
parts of
so
it that
much fun.
I think connected with more in 2025 than I did when I first read it, which must have been 2003 or 2002,
Yep.
or sometime before I met Dan. So it had to be either 2002, three, or four. And then so yeah, no, it's. But I think that's how if you went to anyone and said, hey, what do you think of Rainbow Six? Um, they'd know if they knew anything, would know the video game. They wouldn't know the book. And the video
Yeah.
game doesn't touch on this plot.
Yeah.
Not really.
It's one of my favorite books of all time. And clearly beyond it being a work of high dad lit, it has interesting things to say about righteous violence as a philosophy. It's very clear that Tom Clancy was of the opinion that it is necessary to have violence as an alternative to dealing with extremism and extremist figures. And that, as you've said, Rainbow, while it does suffer a surprise loss, tends to be um, exacting in its destructive energy. They're just
Oh, they're very
boom, boom,
precise.
boom, boom. They're just very precise and lethal.
And I think you get a real sense of how precise they are at the last scene. The last
Yeah.
scene is, basically offering everyone the chance to unconditionally surrender and save
Yes.
their lives, at least for a moment.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, after being, attacked by these insane people and killing most of them, offering them yet again another opportunity to lay down arms and save themselves
Yes.
before John Clark delivers up the ultimate ironic justice.
Yes.
Because that's how the book ends. It ends on an ironic justice note. Because Dan's talking about righteous violence, but at the end, you have all of the characters feeling uncomfortable with what is essentially how they come to see it, which is murdering these people because it's not even a
Yes.
fight. They have no idea what's happening. They're completely ill prepared and not really engaged in an actual match.
Yeah.
Um, and he likens it through a number of characters at the end to murder. They all feel kind
Yeah.
of dirty, engaged in this fight. The Rainbow people do because there's nothing, there's no element of competitive tension to it.
Yeah.
Basically, just shooting people who don't see it coming. Um, and at the end, of course, they don't execute these people per se, but they do leave them to live their ideals in the purest possible way. Which I think is just a brilliant way to have Clark deal with what is essentially pitched as the sort of nightmare scenario of trying to drag all these people back into the American legal system
Yes.
after they've destroyed most of the relevant evidence and figure out a way to prosecute them. And so they don't.
Yeah. Uh,
But they don't put a bullet in their head.
no.
So I don't know how much more I'll reveal of that. I kind of want to leave that there as at
Yeah.
least one element that I don't totally spoil.
Yes. So I think fundamentally, to my mind, it is, and even if you're not particularly interested in the techno thriller genre, there's so much fun stuff there and so much just delight and I think it's a must read. I firmly believe that I would suggest it even now at 900 pages when no one has the time or the attention span to read it. I think 100%. People should go out and read Rainbow Six and enjoy it. Just like uh, you won't be able, as you said, once you get to the last third of the book, it's unputdownable. It simply must be read.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, you're finally at the point where you realize that it's all coming together and everyone knows enough about it, what's happening to start moving very fast in
Yes,
the direction of revelation and then some kind of climax. So
yes,
yeah, you want to see how it ends, and
yeah,
you're not disappointed by the time you get there. It's not anticlimactic. It is full on climax at the end,
yes.
which I think is really essential for Dadlit. Not just because dads are guys and they really want to end on a climax, but I hope
It's
people
very
realize, yeah,
dirty.
yeah,
It's very
the
dirty, Barrett, but they do.
yeah. Look, you know, double entendre. But the point is, the you're not disappointed. You don't get to
No,
the end. Oh, that was dumb. Or, oh, I wish it would have ended differently. I really, I thought that when I first read the book, it's one of the things I remembered best about it. And even though I knew it was coming the second time, it was still supremely satisfying at the
yeah,
end. Um, and yeah, no, I like I said, I don't often reread books. I remember books pretty well, and I have
yes.
so many books I want to read. I just can't ever really justify to myself, oh, I should reread this. Like I really love
Mhm.
Dracula by Bram Stoker, but I can't see myself necessarily diving in to reread it anytime soon because I've read it. I remember most of it, and I can move on to do other stuff.
Yeah.
But this was fun. I knew it wasn't going to take me very long, which is why I was willing to do it. Although Dan was on my rump about it. Yeah, Marriott, we're going to talk Rainbow Six. You rereading it, taking forever, Marriott.
Well, Alex, thank you. To the dad literati out there, go out, get your copy of School of Homer and Murder with a Glass of Malvasia. And
And Rainbow
look,
Six.
and Rainbow Six. Give them all a read. Clancy left the world a gift, and we should all celebrate and enjoy it.
That he
Well,
did. That he did. I know everyone has their own favorite Clancy novels, and I certainly have enjoyed a number of his books, but Rainbow Six is my favorite of his
oh
of
yeah,
what he left behind. So,
far and above. Well, thanks, Alex.
yep, no problem.
Our time together has come to an end. It's time to return to your wife, kids, and friends. It's time to pick up those books you forgot while you wait for the next Dad Lit part.